Hello and welcome back to the fourth episode of the One United podcast. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Yeah, especially after this weekend, doing very well.
Right, let's get into it then. Let's do it.
So speaking of this weekend, United Bournemouth 5-2. What are your thoughts on the game?
The 5 was good. I'm not sure about the 2. I'm happy that there's lots of attack in football, and we seem to be getting back into the old United ways of attacking. Obviously, you can see goals when you attack, so that was bound to happen. I didn't have a problem with conceding goals. I had a problem with the manner of the goals that we conceded.
Yeah.
To be fair, the penalty, I still don't know there was a handball. And VAR, I don't know, we've been complaining about it for so long, but VAR has been so kind of, it's just a grey area, really.
Yeah.
It could have hit his hand, could have hit his shoulder, no one really knows. They didn't make it evidently clear when they were doing the replays or anything, so I didn't look at it and think that is definitely a handball or that is definitely not a handball. You just can't tell. So it could have been given in some games, it might not have in others, but we got bad luck. But the first goal was absolutely dreadful. My God. I think we should start with the. I know Maguire got megged, but the Wan-Bissaka defending there. I've seen a clip of it, and obviously everyone criticises Maguire for the nutmeg, which they should, because it was. I mean, you should not get megged like that in your own box. But Wan-Bissaka is kind of like jogging and not really making a challenge, and it just looked a bit kind of, I don't know, it was a bit all over the place. And then De Gea has made yet another mistake. So
Yeah, I think the goal just perfectly sums up Harry Maguire. I think for the 80 million, we have got an incredible leader. That's one thing. He's incredible in the air. We're a lot better at defending set pieces now. But there is still frailties when the ball's on the ground and someone's running towards him. He's not got the speed or agility, as we showed there. He's obviously come in at full speed, not been able to slow down in time, and he's just popped it through his legs. Whereas if he's quicker and more agile, he stops in time, positions himself better, and just tackles him. I think we saw it with the Bergwijn goal for Spurs as well.
It's like, I don't know, he's like a canal boat with a turning circle. It takes years, it takes an age for him to turn or to run. It's like, he's like one of those FIFA defenders he's like the John Terry on FIFA.
Yeah.
When, back in the day when, you could just knock it round him and run, or, it was just, I don't know, it didn't sit well with me, the nutmeg. If he would have taken it around him and it would have been a fantastic piece of skill or something, fine. But, I mean, you shouldn't have your legs wide open in the box for starters. And you shouldn't get done like that. And then, I'm actually, quite frankly, bored of talking about De Gea's mistakes this season, because it's just repetitive. It keeps happening, and it's fine. You can have... with him, he's been fantastic for us for so many years, and he's still got amazing shot-stopping abilities and stuff. But the mistakes, they've got to be cut out sooner rather than later, because it's causing a big problem, man. And against the top side, you can see that goal, and you're struggling.
Yeah.
Liverpool and City, they wouldn't give you an inch of space if you conceded that goal. And there's a chance you could go on and lose the game 2, 3, 4. But I think there's only so much credit you can have in the bank after the last 6 or 7 years. It just gets a bit boring to watch. So I say bring Henderson back and let them fight. Let them batter out. And if De Gea comes second best, he leaves.
Yeah, that's probably the best shout. I think if we keep hold of Henderson next season, we'll see a completely different David De Gea.
Yeah, I think you'll see the world-class side of him back, because he knows that Romero is not going to challenge him. He knows that. And he's probably thinking, oh, hang on a minute, I make one mistake. He's probably disappointed about it on the day. The next day, forgotten about. Doesn't really matter. The only way you're going to get him to perform well is if you either stick Romero in a Premiership game and basically say today, oh, hang on a minute. He'll look at it and think, why have I been dropped? And then he'll think, oh, right, okay, because of all those mistakes I've made over the last few weeks. Yeah, that makes sense now. It's got to happen. Something's got to happen. We can't just keep going on like this because we're talking about him every week now. There's one mistake or another every week. It's either the Everton one was the worst one I think I've ever seen in the last 10 years, where Calvert-Lewin closed him down, and it was just like he was almost waiting for the striker to come towards him, waiting, and everyone's thinking, are you going to kick it now? And he's, nah, it's all right. I'll wait for him. So he's inside my body before I can actually just clear the ball. So something's got to change, and I don't know what you think, but it's let them fight. Let them fight. They're professionals. Let them fight.
Yeah, it's definitely the best policy. But moving on to the positives of the game. At what point do we give Mason Greenwood the Ballon d'Or?
We'll get there eventually, I'm sure. No, I don't. I'm rarely left gobsmacked by players and abilities, and I mean, I made a comment. I was sat watching the game with my dad. Obviously, he's also a United fan. We see the first goal. We think this is just left foot, fantastic. He's got a hell of a left foot on him.
Yeah.
And then the second goal, and I'm sat there thinking, I'm like a year or two older than this guy, and I'm sat at home watching him do that with his wrong foot. I mean, it puts shame to half the planet. That it's just, he's a remarkable talent, and still doesn't change my opinion on getting another winger. Still doesn't change that. I think we have to. It's for depth as well, more than anything.
I think long term you've got to see Mason Greenwood as a centre forward.
I hope so, but he seems to be. He can hit him from anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you've got a player who can do that, you can put. I mean, you could put him centre mid, and he'd do a fantastic job. The guy's a generational talent. He's once in a blue moon that comes along at that kind of, that he's grown in that kind of amount of time, and over lockdown you can see he's bulked as well.
Absolutely.
England are looking a bit more rosy with their forwards as well now. He's got to be in the mix. Has to be.
Yeah, I think it goes a long way when at such a young age. The chance he had against Spurs last minute of the game.
Yeah.
It says a lot when you left gobsmacked that he didn't score it because you expect it to go in. He scored so many goals like that. Hang on a sec. Yeah, as I was saying, he shifts it onto his right foot. We've seen him do it at least 7 or 8 times already this season. I was amazed it didn't go in, and that says a lot of a player who's so young.
He's just, again, a talent that you've got to recognise as a player who's going to start pushing some of the, well, I don't know whether you say best forwards in the world, that England front line, but probably he's going to start pushing them to the limit now. Players that aren't scoring simply won't get into the team. So we've got an abundance of choice in that sense, and United, no one expected this from him when he came into the first team.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone expected him to hit. They expected him to hit the ground running and kind of push on and get some goals, but not 15 in your first season, and when you're 18 years old, is a remarkable talent.
And then I suppose, lastly, obviously Bruno Fernandes yet again. I think he's now got more goal involvements than games in the Premier League, hasn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. How many goals is it now? I know he's got
5 goals, 6 assists, or the other way around.
something like that. It might even be more now. I don't know. Something like that. Yeah. Again, we said it at the start when he came in. We knew this guy was a talent, and he's a player that takes risks. He does give the ball away, but he can play that killer pass. And I'd rather have a player that commits himself and takes the risk than a player that's conservative and kind of. I'd rather have Fernandes than a Jordan Henderson. Put it that way.
Definitely.
I'd rather have forward thinking than sideways, boring, average. I could use so many words to describe Jordan Henderson in that way. I really could. So, but yeah, I'd rather have Fernandes without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think it just says a lot, because I think the first time he does drop sort of a 7 out of 10 performance, everyone will be shocked, like he did against Norwich. He was in contention for man of the match, and that was one of his worst performances in a United shirt.
Yeah, again, that game is another one that there's certain games that I know we made a lot of changes, but that was just. I mean, that showed our defensive frailties, and we're in the bottom side. So, but yeah, we've got Villa on Thursday. There's not many teams that I'd like to slap more than Villa, purely because, and I'm going to ruffle a few feathers here, because I believe their fans have too high expectations for their club. Yes, we get it. You won the European Cup once, however many years ago that was, probably 40 or 50. So you won the European Cup once. Now you kind of feel a sense of entitlement to be pushing for European places. I said it when they played their last game against Liverpool. Know your place. You're not a Champions League team. You're probably not even good enough to be a Premier League team. Not in a horrible way, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
You're not. You don't belong in the top 6.
So just quickly looking forward to that game, then, do you think he plays the same team that's doing so well, or do you think he rotates and prevents any injuries?
I don't think at the moment. I really don't think injury prevention should be one of the things on his mind. I really don't. You've got the Europa League ties will be next month.
Yeah.
From what UEFA are saying anyway. So you've got the FA Cup now, which we can focus on as well. But you've got 2 cups, 2 competitions. You wouldn't usually have that in this stage. Well, obviously you wouldn't have a season at this stage of kind of this stage of football, because it would be a nice little break right now. But at the latter stages of the season, you have more games than this usually.
Yeah.
So I think you start an unchanged 11. Goal difference at the moment is critical. It really is. I don't think I can stress that enough, because it could come down to 1 point, it could come down to no points, and it could come down to goal difference. So you should always, as a top side, especially fighting for top 4, you should send a side out there and say, right, let's go and score 10. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And Villa are vulnerable at the back. Everyone knows that. I mean, that's why they're down in the relegation zone. So they played okay against Liverpool, to be fair. Didn't play that bad, but again, it was all hands to the pump defensively as expected.
Yeah.
So go out there, tell the midfield and the attack, have fun, but whilst you're having fun, go and put 7 or 8 past them.
Yeah.
So
speaking of what we need to get top 4, we'll move on. Is with Leicester and Chelsea both looking a bit frail. How realistic do you think top 4 is now?
I mean, at the start of when the season began, I think you'll agree we were a bit worried. Yeah. I'd say that was probably the word I'd use. A bit concerned that we weren't going to get it, and that's because we hadn't seen the way the side were playing and kind of the qualities that we had, and we didn't foresee Chelsea and Leicester putting in the performances they have. I mean, Leicester obviously got a win, and so did Chelsea, but again, they're not looking like the two sides they were before lockdown. I back us now. I really do. And if Leicester have got Arsenal tonight, so fingers crossed. And I really, I don't know. I said to you before that Arsenal defence makes me nervous. It still does, regardless of whether they've won 2 games in a row. I hope they can put in a shift and get a decent result. They've been starting to get some decent results over the last couple of games. So hopefully they can make it a lot easier for us. And the big game is the last game of the season.
Absolutely, yeah.
You lose that, and I think it will come down to that game. I really do. So, we're 3 points behind at the moment, with like a 9 worse off goal difference.
Yeah.
So as I said, go out and get the goals. Smash 6 past Villa. Liverpool beat them 2-0 and they were drunk. So I think we've got a real chance of putting a few goals past them, and then keep winning. Can't afford to lose any games. I think Chelsea will realise the same kind of thing as well. Can't afford to lose any games. Chelsea got Palace away tonight, which is going to be no easy task. So yeah, I have more hope than I did before.
I'd agree with you there. I think the question about rotation really comes into, well, what would you say, comes to fruition here, because I think he plays best side every game because he cannot drop any points. It's not in United's hands at the minute, so they've got to do everything they can to win every single game, which is why I think we'll see an unchanged lineup again against Villa.
Yeah, I think so. And although it's not in our hands, tonight is a big night. It really is. With an inform Arsenal, which we haven't seen an inform Arsenal in, 3 years, 4 years? Probably 15 years. We haven't seen an inform Arsenal in a very long time. So, I think we can hold some high hopes for that game. And Arsenal, I never support Arsenal. I really, don't particularly like them as a club and stuff. But come on, you Gunners, do us a favour for once. It would be nice. But hopefully they'll put in a shift, and that would change the dynamic of the whole thing if they win.
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned earlier about defensive frailties that United have had, and there's obviously been a lot of speculation at the minute about Solskjaer wanting a left-footed centre-back. What do you think? There's any legs to these rumours? And if there are, who do you think we should be getting in?
We saw that. I don't know whether you've seen it. That video of him and Ake talking. Yeah. A lot of people will have seen that. Again, we need a centre-back. I've said that from the beginning of the season, and I'll keep saying it until we get a good centre-back. But all these rumours, I saw a rumour about, you got 2 options, Ake or Godfrey. What? I mean, I've said before, if you're going to get a centre-back, you've got to get the top centre-back. You've got to get one of the top, 10 in the world.
Yeah.
And you just pay the money to get them. I know you can build players up and you can make them brilliant, whatever. We don't need that now. We don't need a side that's going to progress. Someone's going to get progressively better over the next 4 years. Maybe to put on the bench and and play in cup games or whatever. Fine, but you need someone that's going to make an instant impact now. If you're going to look to push for trophies in the next 2 years, and you push for trophies and get a top player, then other players in the squad will be thinking, "Oh, hang on a minute, I might stay or I might sign a new deal because." We're looking to get better players in.
Yeah,
it's got to happen. Got to be a better centre back than, you can't just think. I guess you probably need a left-footed centre back, but you can't just think, oh, left-footed. Who's left-footed and who's available on the market? Oh, I don't know. Buddy, whoever. You can't think Championship, or you can't think. You've got to think top players. They've got to be at Champions League standard at least.
So I've been looking at a few. If we're specifically going with left-footed ones, I think the one that stands out to me, who could be available, would be Lucas Hernandez from Bayern Munich. I think with how many centre-backs they've got, I think he could leave. He's not been getting that much game time.
Yeah.
He's not the finished article, definitely not. He's got errors in him, but I think if you give him and Maguire a season together, I think they do better than Maguire and Lindelof have.
Yeah, I've seen some of your work on the United stand, and I've agreed with some of the choices actually. There are problem with left-footed centre backs is it's a very specific thing to look for.
Yeah.
And you're looking at a certain player with certain attributes. Hernandez does have those. I mean, they paid a lot of money for him. What was it, 50 odd million or something in the end?
I think it's about 80 million euros. So I don't know what that equates to. 60 odd million.
65 probably, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of money they've invested. I don't think, as I said to you before, Bayern and the top sides, unless you pay big money, they don't let the top players go. They just don't, because they are top sides and they know they're top players. He hasn't been playing though, so maybe we're looking at someone who's better, but it's got to be someone with a little bit of pace as well, because I'm not having two Harry Maguires centre back get absolutely rinsed by, I don't want to get rinsed again by the Scousers. I can't have that. So, and their front line will just tear apart two slow centre backs. It just will. It's got to be someone with a bit of pace. And I've seen there are some options, but, Ake, not really keen on that. If Chelsea wouldn't have let him go if he was that good, I'll put it that way. They just wouldn't have let him go. So I know they're talking about this buyback option or whatever. They haven't taken that up. They've had the option to take that up, and they haven't. So, and their centre back kind of pairing hasn't been great either. So
no, that's what
he's really not that good.
With him and Godfrey, they've been mainstays the whole season, and they're responsible for two of the worst defences in the league. So I think targeting those players is pointless. I think there was enough criticism given to Maguire at the fact that he'd already been relegated twice, I think.
Yeah, well, he got relegated twice in one season, which is not good. He was on loan at God, who was he on loan at? A League One club, and his parent club got relegated, and he got relegated in the same season with the League One club as well. So not great, but I mean, he's already been slated enough, and we just can't have another player like that. It can't happen. So aim big. That's what I always say for a club like United. Got to aim high.
One thing you've got to look at as well as his speed. I think Lindelof's a quick centre back, but he gets caught out at the fact that he's not good in the air. So I think the ideal defender we sign has to be both quick and good in the air. Surely.
The only defender that matches that description at the moment, Van Dijk or Koulibaly, and they are both right-footed. So we've got a lot of searching to do, but we'll get there, I'm sure. As long as it's not a mid-table centre half, I don't want someone. Ake's not performed for me. I haven't seen. You usually see loads of talk about him throughout the whole season. I haven't seen that at all. So that suggests to me that Bournemouth fans aren't that hyped about him either.
I think another thing to mention as well is I'm not sure why there's such a importance placed on a left-footed centre-back. I think Liverpool have got two right-footed centre-backs in Gomez and Van Dijk, and they're the best defence in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the reasoning behind it, I think, and people will agree and disagree, is the Pep situation, where he purposely went out to get a left-footed centre half because he wants to be able to play out from the back. And I mean, people say Joe Gomez is this and that. I really don't think he's that fantastic yet. Anyone who's next to Van Dijk is made to look good.
Yeah.
Simple as that. You could put I don't know, Kabasele, say, from Watford. You could put him, or remember that guy they had, they still have him, Sebastian Prodel guy, who was genuinely one of the biggest calamities I've ever seen. They put him centre back. You could put him against up next to Van Dijk, and he would look good. Any player next to Van Dijk is going to be made to look good. So, got to find, the left-footed thing. I think is a good idea. It gives you a bit more kind of versatility in centre back, but you've got to find the right one. It can't be, someone who's okay. It's got to be someone who's Champions League level. Simple as that, really, I think.
Well, moving on from United then, we've obviously, behind closed doors, we've both done a lot of research on what's happening at Barcelona, and I don't think that's covered enough. So do you want to briefly explain what's going on?
Right. As much as I can. There's basically a financial crisis from what we're seeing in the media and what the club president is saying, and their actions in the transfer market suggest that there's some sort of problem going on there financially. So I've looked at revenue and the amount of money they made over the last year. Last year they announced record revenues, so they were getting a lot of money in. It was actually from different sources, so it wasn't just from TV money. A lot of money came in from that, about 200 million, I think. And then obviously you got your Champions League money and your league money and stuff. But they're two big sources of income. Ticket sales. They earn usually around 60 million euros a year in ticket sales, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Especially for a club that's not owned by one massive financial backer. Then they earn about 58 million euros a year with their museum in the Nou Camp, where they get people go in. Obviously, it's a tourist attraction, so they earn a lot of money through that. Their revenue was about, the club stated it was higher than it was because they introduced all these random revenue costs, which shouldn't really be included in. They're including your financial records because they have to be.
Yeah.
They said it was around 980 million euros, which it wasn't. It was about 841 in the end. So you take away their wage bill from that, which is about, I looked it up and it's very high, 391 million euros. That's their wage bill. Obviously, you're looking at a massive one of that is Messi's wage in the first place. And you take away, you've got obviously no fans in the stadium at the moment. The museum's been locked down since March. No one's allowed to go in there. They've lost about 154 million euros so far during the coronavirus.
Yeah.
As a club. Obviously, the players are taking wage cuts and stuff, but there's still not the operating costs. They're having to pay out a lot of money for the stadium and keeping like maintenance and stuff. So the operating costs are still high, but they're not gaining any money from the usual sources they would. And they're talking about this. Either there's two different sources I looked at that said it could be for charitable causes for the coronavirus. They're looking at renaming their stadium, potentially, and they're saying that could get them upwards of 500 million euros, which would be for not for a 1-year deal, obviously, for 2 or 3 years. But that might go towards charitable causes. I hope it does if they do rename it, because they did the whole thing with UNICEF, didn't they, as part of their sponsors. So it might be for charitable causes, but at the same time, they might think, hang on a minute, we've lost a lot of money here. So they're in a pretty dire financial situation where they need to offload players. We know that. The club will certainly be thinking they've got a lot of dead weight. You look at the club and you've still got players like Arturo Vidal who, again, not really playing that much, hasn't performed since he's been there, and he's on a high wage. Antoine Griezmann is earning about 20 million euros a year. Andre ter Stegen wants to sign a new contract and earn as much as Griezmann because he believes he's as important.
Yeah.
So you've got all these players who are trying to get new deals and stuff and trying to get more money, and then they're asking them to take a wage cut. The club aren't performing on the pitch as well, which is you can have financial troubles, you can have struggles and stuff, but at the end of the day, it lies with how happy the fans are, and the fans at the new camp at the moment are really not happy. They are struggling to find a way that this team is going to get any kind of trophies. They're struggling big time, and then we've got the Lionel Messi situation that has just come out. We see reports about it every year, don't we? We see reports about him leaving to City or going, or some Chinese club or Qatari club has offered him, 100 million a year to play there. But these newfounded rumours, his contract expires in 2021 next year, from what I understand. They've been desperate to tie him down to a new deal. And it's either 2021 or 2022, his contract. But he will want out of a club that's not winning trophies. And, he's happy at Barcelona because he's earning a good wage and he's always the centre of attention. But he knows that wherever he goes, he's going to be the centre of attention. So, I don't know what you think about potential moves for him, but it could be that he leaves.
Yeah, I think it's a very risky scenario with Barcelona, because if they keep him, can they afford to keep him on? He's the best player in the world. He's well within his rights to demand however much he's getting paid. But then that high salary, other players will be looking at that and thinking, well, why can't I earn that if we've got the money to pay him?
Yeah.
So that's a slippery slope you go down. But then if you lose him, you're in a better financial position, but the team on the pitch falls to pieces. Barcelona haven't been a good team this year. Lionel Messi's rescued them time and time again, I think.
Yeah. You've got a player of that importance, and at the end of the day, it lies with him, the decision. I can't really stress that enough for people watching. The decision will lie with him. If he wants to leave, he will leave. Simple as that.
Yeah.
He will call the shots. He has called a lot of the shots in the transfers that Barca have made over the last kind of few years. He's had a massive say and a big input on what they do in the transfer market. And over the last few years, that hasn't exactly worked out. And then you've got it could turn out a fantastic move of genius, but I don't see it as that. I see it as a borderline psychotic deal where you've just let go a top midfielder, 23-year-old top midfielder that you've signed from Brazil, and you bring in a 29-year-old midfielder who can't really even make Juve's starting lineup. So again, the club's making all kinds of ridiculous moves at the moment, and that deal for me, that's probably going to be the tip of the iceberg for a lot of fans and maybe for some of the players.
Yeah, I think that deal has just summed up their recruitment in the last couple of years. I think letting one of the hottest prospects in the world leave and replacing him with a 30-year-old, I think Pjanic will become the 8th or 9th first team player that's over the age of 30.
Yeah.
They've obviously tried planning for the future a bit. They've signed Frankie de Jong. He's been successful, but he's not set the ground alight like he did at Ajax. I think they've tried with Dembele. That's gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But the problem with Barcelona is they keep signing midfielders. They're completely overrun with midfielders, which means they're not able to give opportunities to their academy products. They've got some really high quality players in the academy, Barcelona B team, that just aren't getting a look in at all. I think they're just straying away from the tradition that's made them such a good club, and I think that's worrying for fans. And I do think they could become the next AC Milan.
Yeah, I mean, AC Milan have. I don't know whether you saw last night. They've announced their Ralf Rangnick is taking over next year. So maybe they're trying to go a step in the right direction. I think that's a good move for them. But we can get into that at another latter stage in another podcast. But yeah, you're right. Barca could turn into it could be a disaster. It really could. And with how big the club is, I don't see it ending well. I really don't. It seems like Bartomeu, who is the whether you call it the chief exec or the chairman, essentially he is the chairman. He seems to have lost the plot a little bit with some of the moves that he's making, and it can't be all financial because at the moment they're not winning trophies. They won. Did they win the league last year? They did.
Won the league the last couple of years.
But they obviously, as a club, focus on the now rather than previous years and whatever. But it has been an absolute, complete disaster this year. And they're still in the Champions League, I think.
Yeah, got a second leg against Napoli.
Yeah, that's right. But they're not performing in that either. No. And you're right, they're being rescued by one player, and he'll be thinking, why can't you just put some half decent people around me? I know you still got Suarez, your Griezmann, but if they're not performing, then what's the objective? It's a means to no end at Barca at the moment, and yeah, I mean, you can't really say much more than that. It's a worry.
Definitely. Well, another club that are obviously all of a sudden in complete disarray is Wigan. I know you've done a lot of research about that. So what's
yeah. I mean, I have nothing but sympathy for these guys. Their fans and the owners. I've just found out today that 50% of the staff have been laid off at the DW. Administrators they're doing their best, I guess. That's what you could say. They were put in a really difficult situation. I believe it was Dave Whelan that owned the club when they were in the Premiership, and then they went through kind of troubles and went down and stuff. And they, I think they were in League One at one stage, and then they bounced back up to the Championship. And they've been getting back into form over the last few weeks, and they've been starting to look like they're a good side. They got taken over last year, I believe, or a few months ago anyway, by Stanley Choi, who was I think he still is a poker player, but they call him a businessman. I'm not sure you can call him a businessman because he just gambles. That's all he does, really. He thought it was a good idea to invest, although he didn't invest. He just borrowed a loan of money, bought the club, and he called it one of his private investments. He never went to any games or anything, never showed his face really. So it was all a bit kind of in the dark from that side of things. And the club has recently just been kind of switched owners, basically, to unknown sort of Chinese businessman, someone who no one really knows what's kind of going on there. And then we've all seen the situation with the betting scandal. There's been a bet that's been placed over in the Philippines for Wigan's relegation. And as you said before the podcast, they started to pick up form before this whole thing happened. And then, coincidence? I don't think so. The owner just decided he didn't want to fund the club anymore, really. Said, we'll just take all the money out of the club. There's nothing there. And they basically put the club into administration. And that will lead to a 12-point deduction, which will, if the appeal, which they've said they're going to lodge an appeal today, if that doesn't stand, which the EFL are notorious for being arseholes. They are. They're terrible with owners and vetting them and stuff. That appeal won't be heard, really. They'll just say 12-point deduction. They'll get relegated. This bet that's been put on will gain the owners or whoever's put the money on it to happen millions of pounds. And yeah. So that scared the shit out of me. I don't know what that was.
Okay.
That's all right. Don't worry. I just jumped. Yeah. Basically, the EFL have screwed yet another club, and I don't know how long they're going to keep getting away with it for. But their vetting process clearly isn't working. That's all I can really say. We've seen it happen with Bolton as well. And, it's happened with Wigan now, and it will happen to other clubs because the EFL don't care about anything other than money. They can say, the form that I read that they ask the owners to fill out is you've got to have proof of funds. So you can essentially just take out a massive loan and say, here's my money, here's my funds, I'm going to buy the club with this. And, they're not vetting the owners correctly. All you have to do is basically show that you haven't gone bankrupt or basically show that you have a load of money. And it's clearly not working. Something's got to change. The EFL will blame everyone else. They always do. And the same with the FA. They've got to vet owners as well. They'll just blame everyone else. I'm quite frankly, I'm tired of them just the refusal to take care of clubs that are in their leagues. It's just ignorance, and it's an utter disgrace. And I have complete sympathy with Wigan fans at the moment. They're fed up. They've seen it happen before to Bolton, and we'll see it happen again to other clubs, I'm sure. And the EFL will do what they always do. They'll deduct points off the club. They'll tell them basically to sort it out themselves. They should have given clubs, during the coronavirus as well, they should have given clubs a relief fund. They have a lot of money in the bank. We all know the EFL have a lot of money in the bank. They should have given clubs a relief fund to allow them to kind of keep stability.
Yeah.
But they just do what they always do and allow clubs to go into administration, and it's a disgrace.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I'd say, just the whole process needs completely relooking at. It's happened way too many times now.
It's just not fair. I don't see any. There's no beneficiaries in this. No one gets anything from it. The only thing that so bit of a kind of tricky situation for everyone at the moment, and it's an utter disgrace what's happening, and the EFL will just do what they always do and bat it off as if it's nothing, and they'll hope that people forget about it in the next year or so. But they can't keep doing this. It's not fair. It's not fair on fans. Fans are the ones that run football, essentially. You wouldn't have. I mean, you've got football without fans at the moment, but everyone's still watching. Everyone's still, got their input and stuff. But it's a disaster from the EFL's point of view. So, yeah, I have nothing more to say other than Wigan fans try and keep a bit of hope and I'm sure things will get sorted. But never trust the EFL or the FA because they won't help you.
Yeah, well, on that pretty somber note, we'll leave it there. Yeah, so we've got Villa and I think Southampton on Monday to look forward to.
Yep.
And hopefully when we next see you, we'll be just as happy as we were this weekend.
Yeah, let's hope so.
So yeah, once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.